The next item tonight is Farmers Market temporary move to Jackson Street. I want to make sure, lot to accommodate UI Homecoming Parade. And I do want to introduce this by commenting on the fact that we have quite a dilemma. We have two much-loved traditions, including the University of Idaho Homecoming Parade, which happens on Main Street every year, and the Moscow Farmers Market, which has recently been moved to Main Street. The only, that common public right-of-way. And so how do we accommodate both of those events on the same day? We've had a number of stakeholder meetings and a lot of meetings that have gone on in parallel rather than in unison. And so this afternoon we had a number of stakeholders come into City Hall and for what I think was a very productive, congenial discussion, and we have some possibilities to maybe help out, giving both parties a win if we can in this case. Gary, would you like to introduce this, please?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. As the mayor indicated, the Moscow's Farmers Market has been moved to Main Street by action of the City Council during the season of 2012. During that season, of course, annually we have the U of I Homecoming Parade, which is given pursuant to permit. Those permits regularly are issued by staff pursuant to council policy. Last year, the Farmers Market was relocated for one day into the Jackson Street parking lots. There was discussion at that time that alternatives might be looked at. Unfortunately, with the formation of the strategic plan and the formation of the new Farmers Market Commission, there were discussions, but we did not go the extra mile and invite all of the stakeholders to those discussions. In the meantime, the University of Idaho did come forward and applied for a parade permit for the homecoming parade to occur on September 28th, 2013. This issue was looked at by the Moscow's Farmers Market Commission on a couple of occasions, beginning with their first meeting in June, subsequently in July, and then again in August. Up until the August meeting, there was no there was discussion, but certainly there was no recommendation made by the Farmers Market Commission. Staff had met several times. Kathleen Burns, the arts director and the staff liaison to the Farmers Market Commission, brought forward some of the concerns of the commission, and those were vetted out amongst staff. That was a staff-driven meeting, or those meetings, there were several of them, where those issues were vetted out. Some of the issues that were discussed was, could the parade occur on Main Street at the same time as the farmers market? Was that going to be possible? Was a move back to the Jackson Street lots the best alternative, or maybe some other alternative, such as filling in along the 4th and 5th Street rights-of-way, leaving Main Street open for the parade? The consensus of staff at that time was that our recommendation would be, and part of that was public works, police, fire, streets, administration. The consensus was to recommend that and to issue the permit based upon a move back to the Jackson Street lots. Again, as the mayor indicated, that was done without the input of the vendors of the market except through their representation on the commission. And so last Wednesday at the Farmers Market Commission, there was a recommendation made by staff. The commission reviewed it, had a discussion. There were 8 commissioners present. The commission voted to have the parade proceed down Main Street as per previous years, to relocate for temporarily one day the farmers market to the Jackson Street lots. That vote passed 5-0 with the 3 vendors on the commission abstaining. So obviously there was a little bit of concern that perhaps all the stakeholders hadn't been discussed or talked to. In addition, the University of Idaho's involvement up to that point was to apply for the permit, so no real alternatives were discussed. The mayor asked that this be placed on the agenda tonight. We do have a permit that has been issued, has not yet been released, and The Farmers Market Commission, we had a meeting today, as the mayor indicated. We had representatives of the University of Idaho, the Farmers Market Commission. We had representatives of Public Works, Arts Department, Administration. I'm sure I'm missing some people here. The mayor, the police, the mayor, council president, and Tom Lamar, who is the council liaison to the Farmers Market Commission, as well as Gina Taruccio, who is the, of course, chamber exec, but also is the vice chair of the Farmers Market Commission. The chair, Aaron Carroll, was unable to make that meeting, and it was a quick meeting. It was called in about a 2.5 hour period. There was really good dialogue, as the mayor indicated. The consensus of the group, including the University of Idaho, the Farmers Market Commission, and one of the vendor representatives to the Farmers Market Commission, was that no one wants to prevent the University of Idaho from having the parade on Main Street. As the University of Idaho pointed out both to the commission last Wednesday and at the meeting today, the parade is a tradition that began in 1909, has been continuously coming down Main Street, and nobody wants it not to continue that tradition. However, some of the issues that came forward was the move back to the Jackson Street lot the best move? So the University of Idaho, I passed out a couple of documents that were prepared by Tim Helmke and his staff up at the University of Idaho as explaining the importance of the Main Street Parade to the University of Idaho, as well as some alternatives, some things that perhaps could be done to help enhance the farmers market wherever it's relocated for that one time. Those include, and there's been a discussion, a complaint, if you will, from farmers market vendors that no matter where the farmers market occurs, when homecoming parade occurs, people go to the homecoming parade when it starts up, and they very rarely come back to the market, so it makes a very short market day. So the idea from the vendors, the commission, and the University of Idaho were there are some alternatives that perhaps the university could help roll some of that enthusiasm in the homecoming parade to the farmers market. And if you look at the heading, the University of Idaho Homecoming Committee is willing to, there are several things below that, including integrating the farmers market into the parade itself, perhaps having representatives ride floats, announcing that the farmers market is available after the parade, that advertising essentially that the farmers market is healthy and ready to go and serve the University of Idaho alumni and the attendees at the homecoming parade. There was some discussion that, so that is something they're willing to do no matter what the relocation of the market is. As the discussion progressed, there was an idea thrown out that perhaps the Jackson Street parking lot was something that was convenient, perhaps comfortable to the vendors, because that's where they came before they were relocated permanently to Main Street, and there might be a movement for that to be the relocation area. There was also a discussion that perhaps moving the farmers market south of 6th Street might work if the staging and the disbursement of the floats and the parade attendees or participants could be engineered at the end of the parade route. So rather than make a decision and a recommendation to bring to council tonight, what the discussion that was had today was that, again, nobody wanted to prevent the permit from being issued for the parade. So the consensus was, University of Idaho, go ahead, make your plans. You have Main Street, according to the permit, for September 28th. However, before making a decision for where the farmers market would be relocated, and as I indicated, the Farmers Market Commission already recommended that it be put in Jackson Street lot for that one day, that we would put together some informational materials so that perhaps even as soon as this Saturday at the farmers market, that vendors could be polled to determine what they would be comfortable with. That information could then be forwarded to the Farmers Market Commission and could be utilized in determining where would be the best place to relocate the market for that day. As the mayor indicated, and I will take responsibility for some of staff's process that we considered this to be the issuance of a parade permit without realizing that there was other consideration that should have been taken into account. So we're hoping to remedy that. With that, what we're looking for tonight is the council's discussion and, I guess, validation of that plan, that the homecoming parade proceed on the 28th, and that we continue to identify alternatives, and hopefully very quickly with the input of the vendors, the commission itself, and perhaps downtown businesses as to where would be the optimal place to relocate Farmers Market for that one day. With the proviso that we will begin a process, and this year may, if the south of 6th Street option does not work for whatever reason, that it's more comfortable to go into Jackson Street parking lot, we will gather data during that period of time to see if south of 6th Street might work in future years. There's also, as I indicated, discussions about the 4th and 5th Street rights-of-way. We will also be taking data along those issues as well. So that's my report. I'll stand for any questions you might have. As the mayor indicated, I was very pleased with the process that went on today. I think everybody was of the opinion that they want the University of Idaho to continue its tradition, and we want to have as little impact as we can on the farmers market and its vendors.
We actually want to have a positive impact on it if we can with this thing. And part of our discussion today, they were talking about getting measurements of the available space and how that would lay out in some other location, whether the market is simply shifted in its general configuration southward or if it is relocated to the Jackson Street lot, and then accommodations for those people who have parking permits in that vicinity as well. So,
and we've started that process, and staff has started that process, and we're in the process of putting together, once we get that information, of putting together a survey for market goers probably, as well as the vendors.
Great, great. Council members, what do you think? Tim?
Mayor Cheney, thank you. Gary, one of the primary reasons, or one of the reasons that I recall that we moved the market from Jackson Street to Main Street was to accommodate an expanded market. So if we move back to Jackson Street for this parade request, how are we going to accommodate the large number of additional vendors that have started to show at the farmers market on Main Street?
Things for the question. I've discussed that with Kathleen Burns. We do have a significant number of walk-ons that come on every week. The Jackson Street lots were not utilized completely. As you know, they've just been resurfaced, remodeled. It's a beautiful parking lot as far as parking lots go. But the anticipation would be that we utilize all stalls. Those stalls weren't all utilized when we had fewer vendors. Although we've expanded with seasoned vendors, that day walk-ons likely would not be allowed in order to accommodate as many seasoned vendors as possible. Kathleen also indicated that some market vendors don't open their booth on, or don't show up at the market on homecoming day because they know past history has shown that once the homecoming parade begins, that customers leave and they don't often come back. So it may not be a profitable day for them. So she will find that out. We'll gather that data over the next at least 1 or 2 market Saturdays. And we have every anticipation and expectation that we will be able to accommodate those vendors' needs on that one particular day.
Okay, thank you.
Sue?
I was just commenting on the thought about moving the market south of 6th. I think between the ambulance and the hospital and the fire department, that really shouldn't be blocked off. I know there's a lot of empty space south of the hospital and around the therapy solutions, and it seems like that kind of loop where you really can't get back, well, you kind of get back on Main Street a little bit. I mean, that may be south of the hospital, but it just seems to me for emergency services that just doesn't work out so well. But maybe Dan has the